Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dungeon Dive. Daniel here. I hope you're doing well, and if you're not, I hope you are soon. Okay, today on the Dungeon Dive, we are taking a look at Freelancers, a Crossroads game from Plaid Hat Games. This is a game designed by Donald Schultz with main art contributions by Sam Mamelli and Allison Carl. There are some other art attributions here with Sean McCoy at Skull Fungus and Chris Bryan, and also written by Mr. Bistro. I think it's really important to point out the illustrators and the writer of this game because both are so good. So this game was provided to the Dungeon Dive by Plaid Hat Games. And I have played one full campaign or adventure, and I really love this game. I can highly recommend Freelancers. While it plays fine solo, and that is the way that I have played it, I do recommend playing it with more players because I think that's where the game is really going to shine. And I am looking forward to playing this with my kind of casual group, which includes my wife and a couple that live down the street from us. We get together and play kind of simplified adventure games. And I think this is going to go over really well. There are optional solo rules within the app. So yes, this is an app-based game. But stick with me. I really think even if you are adverse to app-based games, just try to get over that thing. Try to get over that self-imposed hurdle that you're placing on the amount of fun you can have and just embrace it for this game. But there are rules for solo within the app, and I think they work pretty well. We'll talk a little bit about them during the course of this video. But there are also a lot of times where you need that kind of social interaction to really make the game shine. So while I've already fallen in love with this game just on a solo play, and I think I'm going to like it even more once I introduce more players. And this can actually play up to 7 players. So let's take a little look at the back of the box here, and then we'll get into the game. Dungeons and exactly one dragon. By the way, I think that Freelancers kind of straddles that line between RPG and board game just about better than any other game I'm aware of. It feels like a board game, and it also feels like an RPG with the app kind of acting as the GM. So this says, congratulations, humanity is dead. The bad news is that all they left behind is their garbage and a broken gig economy. That's why we need freelancers like you, ready to take any job, no matter how loathsome. As a freelancer, you will delve into ruins, brave the wilds, and slay hordes of hideous creatures that litter the dark, forgotten corners of the world. Also, you can gather loot and return home, ready to blow it all and start over again the next day. It's a lousy gig, so it's perfect for the likes of you. If you remember fondly things like a Gamma World, a kind of science fantasy setting, I think you will really like Freelancers. So Freelancers condenses the fantasy RPG campaign experience into a single night of fun and mayhem. Create a character, roll funky dice, and blaze your way through multiple stories set in a world of magic, monsters, and murder. Better yet, no game master is required, as a magical companion app does all of the storytelling for you. So I want to talk a little bit about the theming here before we get into the nitty-gritty. This game is both goofy and dark at the same time. It'll make you laugh, and it'll also go to some pretty dark places. This says ages 14 and up here on the box, and I think that is true. There is actually a point in the adventure that I was playing where the app asked me if one of the players was foul-mouthed, and if I said yes, then one of the characters would get the foul-mouthed title. And then at a later spot in my adventure, I was asked if somebody had the foul-mouthed title, and I did. And it triggered it triggered a story prompt that, let me just say, it went to a place that I never, ever thought a game like this would go. It was wild and dark and just completely twisted and out of left field, but it totally fit within this crazy kind of Gamma World mutated I don't know, apocalyptic punk science fantasy style game that Plaid Hat has created with Freelancers. So we're going to talk a little bit about the game, an overview of the game, and then we'll get into the details. And luckily, with the way this game is structured, it's very easy to kind of step through all of the things that make Freelancers such a great game. So at the beginning of the game, the first thing you'll do is pick a campaign to play. And a campaign takes about 2 to 3 hours. It's a full adventure. And those are separated up into 5 different maps. So we have map A, B, C, D, and E. I played map A here, and you can see the path that I charted. And as you can see through this path that I charted, there were a lot of things that I didn't experience. And so there is quite a bit of replay value in this game because not only once you see everything on a single playthrough for a single adventure, for a single map, but the things change depending on the characters that you have, depending on their species or their job roles. And there are also a whole bunch of random elements that change every time you play. For instance, you might go to dungeons on one of your adventures. And in the app, I clicked on the dungeon icon multiple times in a row to see if there were different dungeons for each map, and there are. So a lot of these areas that you will interact with are in the app. It's kind of like having a huge deck of cards for adventures. Basically, what the app is a kind of a huge deck or many huge decks of cards that have complex encounters and complex story interactions. So I think Freelancers, coming right after Familiar Tales, solidifies Plaid Hat's position as the premier developers of app-based adventure games. It just doesn't really get any better than this, guys. But we have other maps too, and these are whole other adventures that you can have. So we have map B here. This looks like more of kind of a wilderness, kind of on a graph paper. This one is awesome. I mean, you can tell that this is really focusing on that RPG feel because map C here is a hex crawl. That is so cool. I love it. And then here we have kind of a treasure map style where it looks like maybe you are going to different islands or something. Here we have isometric views. This almost feels kind of like a meta RPG where the game is designed to make you feel like you are playing an RPG. And then here we have a graph paper based map with kind of a different style of map. And that's the last one there. And so each one of these is a complete adventure with all kinds of different options. So the first thing you'll do is you will pick an adventure to play. I played through adventure A here. And then you will pick a species. And there are a number of different species. So I was playing as a hound, which is kind of a dog character. And as a solo player, you will play as one full character and then 2 sidekicks, which are kind of like half characters. And they basically just give you the same amount of options you would have as if you were playing with 3 players, but there's not as much bookkeeping. So I was playing as the hound named Miller, and then I was joined by a mouser named Stago and a goblin named Drick. And there are a whole bunch of other species here. We have these stiltkin, we have an elf, we have a troll, a merfolk, we have a mouser, a goblin, you've seen those, an elf. So those are the different, a dwarf there. Those are all of the different species. And each one of those, an imp, we didn't see the imp there. Each one of those will be represented by a wonderful standee with amazing art. I mean, God, the art in this game is so good. All of the different colors, the color palette is unique. And yeah, it's very modern, but it's also very cool. It reminds me kind of maybe like Adventure Time or something like that. Modern kind of Cartoon Network. I really like this standee here for this Stilt Walker. One of my only complaints, and this tells you how good the game is the standee holders are a little loose. So I'll probably end up replacing those, which is kind of the opposite problem that a lot of these games have. Usually the standee holders are so tight that they rip the cardboard as you're putting them in and out. But this kind of has the opposite problem. But once you pick your species, you will then couple that with a job, with a class. And there are a ton of different classes. Each class is represented by its own piece of paper here. It's its own class sheet, and you combine that with your species to make a complete character. The sidekick characters for when you play single player, they don't have a class. But you have classes like rangers, thieves, judges, paladin, a friar, a barbarian. I'm not sure. They say barbarian a couple times. Is that a alternate spelling of barbarian? Or was that a typo? I don't know. Was it just a joke? Was it maybe in this world barbarians are called barbarians? I don't know. A spell sword, a pirate, a divorcee. When I saw this divorcee class, I knew I was in for a wacky time or a weird time. A clam digger, a gunslinger, a private eye, a bard, an artificer. There's a thief, disgraced noble, a dung farmer, a witch, a knight, a skin changer, a gambler, a warrior. There's a bard, ranger, witch, and friar. So yeah, lots and lots of different options. Now you do get a limited number of these, so as you play more and more, you will have to print out your own. They are available on the website. Or this does also kind of force you to pick different jobs, different classes each time you play. And as you are playing, the different classes will prompt different kinds of random encounters. So as you combine different ancestries or different species with different classes, you will have a different experience as you play the game. And once you've chosen all of those things, then you will take your character's starting weapon. Each of the species has its own starting weapon. We have things like swords, tridents, forks, a nickel staff, spears, fencing blades, bone hammers, and a rusty tool. And that's basically what you will do. You will do a little bit of story prompting here. Each of the classes has a backstory that you can plug in certain words from your character sheet there, from your species sheet. And you can read that kind of like a Mad Lib. And then the backs of your job of your class will also have your leveling up. So as you go up in levels, you will gain certain abilities and certain items. And then depending on how well you do at the end, depending on what level you end the campaign on, then you will read a little ending story. But that's about it as far as setup. The app walks you through the setup and also teaches you the game, and it's fantastic. You can open this game up. You can get everything punched out. There aren't a ton of tokens. And you can be up and playing in probably something like 20 minutes. There are also a few decks of cards, and you do have a large deck of loot cards. So these are treasures, and the treasures are separated into a number of different kinds. We have trinkets, and these are things that will add to your character's skills. We have different kinds of weapons that they can have, and also different kinds of armor. And the armor will basically add give you a number of hit points, extra hit points, and also add to your skill. So there are some character builds that you can do by combining different elements. I should talk a little bit about the skills as well, because your classes here, your jobs will also have your skills. And usually when you're doing a dice test, some kind of challenge, you will roll a d20, and then depending on the level of your skill, you have might, agility, smarts, will, and sense, you will add a bonus die going from a d4, d6, d8, d10, and d12. Then you will combine those two, whatever level you are at, look at the total, and then compare it to a target number. And the target number varies. It goes up as the danger level of the world increases. You will also have, as you combine your character, you will see a thing at the bottom here called camp actions. And each of the species and each of the jobs will combine together to give you different camp actions. And those are things that you can do when you come across a camping site on your adventure. So you will be able to interact with the camp location in different ways, depending on the class and the species of your character. Okay, so that was kind of a broad overview. You will be traveling around the land, figuring out what you need to do, going on a main quest. On my main quest for this year was to kill a dragon. We also have a few chits that I've looked at before, so not a lot of chits. We have some chits over to the side. We'll take a look in just a minute as we go through the details of the game. But we basically have luck tokens, and these your characters can earn. They earn quite a few of these during play, and these can be spent to re-roll any of the dice that you just rolled. We have these corruption tokens, and those will prevent you from using your bonus dice. And then we have these stress tokens, which is kind of like damage. We have some supplies tokens. We'll go over those in a minute. We have some lock tokens because as you are interacting with the game book, sometimes certain actions get locked. And then we have these influence tokens, and those are used to keep track on a little track that we'll talk about in just a moment. Okay, so this game makes it very easy to walk through all of the different elements that make up the game because it has a whole bunch of different roles that the players are assigned when you start the game. So we're just going to walk through each one to make sure that we cover all of the details, starting with the role of the game master. So the game comes with these little tokens, and you will give each one of these to a player, and that is their role. That is what they have to do during the game. It's kind of interesting because it keeps people involved in the process of the actual game part of the game. When you are playing solo, you will be managing all of these different roles. So the game master is in charge of the app, and the app is quite simple. It's actually a website, so you don't need to download anything. You just need to access the Freelancers website. I am accessing it here on an old Kindle, and I think it works really well. You have different options. You can go with the printables will take you right to their website, so where you can print off more character sheets. You have your variant rules. That's if you want to learn the solo play. You can, on a laptop, you can download the entire website to run it off of a desktop if you want. I ran into no bugs. I have heard that some people have, but I didn't have any bugs on my first play. The app will give you a password so you can continue your campaign on another device if you want to. But if you're playing on the same device, you can easily stop and restart whenever you want. To start a quest, you will click to start the quest. You will pick which map you want. Now we have the adventures for maps A, B, E, and C are available right now. Map D is coming soon, October 11th. And I have a feeling that it will also be pretty easy for them to make different adventures using the same maps with just the way that the app works. And I think that's really cool. So I was playing on map A. Here we have would you like the app to help you set up the game? It does a really good job of walking you through all of the steps to set everything up. I like that a lot. You don't even really need the rule book except for a reference. You can say, no, we're done setting up. Here we can pick our species and our jobs. So I'll just pick 3 there, and then you'll click save and continue. And then it gives you your game code. And so that is the code that you can use to load your game on another device. And then we can set our difficulty. I was playing on recommended. And yeah, and then we get to the beginning of the game and we can actually listen to it. Yeah, I think the voice acting is really good. The reading is a little slow, so sometimes I don't listen to it. Sometimes I just read because I want to play a little faster. But I had a great time with the app. I think it does a really good job. So at certain points, you will be told to enter in different story prompts depending on the page that you are on and the kind of interaction that you are doing. If you have any followers, sometimes you will need to trigger different followers. You can easily see a history, a rules glossary. You can set your species and jobs. And as you are traveling on the map, you will interact with these various icons, and you will press the icons on the map, and then that will kind of draw a card for you to trigger a random encounter and a complex story encounter. So yeah, this is really cool. I think the app works really well. I have no problems with it whatsoever. It was very easy to manage, and I think it added a lot to the game. Okay, the next up here is the bookkeeper, and the bookkeeper is in charge of the location book. And the location book is kind of an action selection or worker placement style game here. You will have your location, the driftlands here. And then depending on how many players you are playing as, or how many heroes, how many characters, you can select a number of actions from call. So this has 7 actions. Call to the harpies, climb the tower, meditate, study ruins, repair the walkway, keep your balance, and find the hatch. So any of them that are marked with this red here, those actions you have to take. And so that's something imperative that you have to do. So you have to assign one of your heroes to do that action. The others can be done either as a group, multiple people can meditate, or these blue actions, only one player can do those. And you would set your hero standees on the actions that you want to take, and then work down from top to bottom, and then looking over at the side to get the details of what each action is. Now, the way that this game keeps things going, especially when you are playing 7 players, is during this planning phase, while you are planning what you are doing, you only have 45 seconds, and the app has a timer. As soon as you turn to the page, the app will say, start the timer now, and then you, as the players, have to determine what you are doing and who's going where. And if one of the players takes too much time and doesn't get assigned to a spot, then there are some ramifications, and I think that's really cool. I think a 7-player game in this would actually not drag on for too long. And then depending on what you have chosen, you will look on the right-hand side here, and that will give you the details of what you are doing. So as number 1, call to the harpies, you're going to make a will test +1. And then depending on what you roll, you will enter in an entry into the app, and then that will give you a little story. And the will test is a D20 plus whatever your bonus is, and you're looking for 1 to 14 or 15 plus. There's a 15 plus. You're almost always looking to roll high. So you would enter in 502 into your app, and then that will prompt that story. Climb the tower, you're making a might test. Meditate, you can spend 1 time, we'll go over time in a minute, to choose the following. You can heal, you can lose corruption, or you can gain luck. So this is a place you can go to kind of bolster your character. You can study the ruins, make a smarts test. You can repair the walkway, which is just an entry into the app. So that would draw a couple cards for you, and you would have some kind of complex encounter. I imagine that if this game didn't have the app, it would probably have over 1,000 cards. I mean, there are so many random encounters in this, and I'm really looking forward to experiencing as many as I can. Here we have to keep our balance because this is a driftways. It's some kind of city built on these spires here. As we are walking, one of the characters needs to make sure we're keeping our balance, which is an agility test. Here we can find the hatch. So you're looking for a hatch, and that's a sense test. Once everybody has done this, then it's the end of the round, and you enter in the code for this particular location. And then that triggers a more epic story event, which usually prompts you to move on and continue your adventure. Now, there are a ton of different areas and locations to explore with all kinds of different art and environments and atmospheres and vibes and just different things that you will be interacting with on your game. And man, I love the look of this game. It has so much cool art. I mean, look at that. That is fantastic. But yeah, this is a really cool book. I love exploring this book. I think most of the adventures probably start in this hub marketplace, at least the ones that I have seen so far. So that was the bookkeeper. The cartographer is in charge of the map. And as the cartographer, your job is to mark the paths that you are going. You circle the locations that you were on. And then once you have encountered that location, you can cross them off and then choose a new path. You can backtrack to different areas, but you can't encounter that same area again. The only reason you would ever backtrack is to maybe take a different path. There will be times when you can find shortcuts depending on what happens in the game book. So I bypassed space 83. I went straight from 82 to 84. There will be times when you are told to draw something or to write something on the map. I had to say that where a hermit was and where the dragon was. But as you can see, there are a lot of areas that I didn't explore in this map A. I can head off in this direction, or I can head off in that direction. I can take a bypass here and go up to a tavern. So very cool. And the map, the cartographer just keeps track of where you are and the things that you have discovered on the map. The next role here is the influencer. And the influencer keeps track of the influence track. The influence track is a track where you will take all of your characters' tokens that you are playing with. If you are playing a solo game, then you only have one character on the influence track. And this is kind of where I think the game loses a little bit when you are playing solo, because this is used for a whole bunch of things. During the app will ask you, who's highest on the influence, who's lowest. If you're only playing one player, then if you're just playing solo, then you are always highest and lowest. So everything always happens to you. I think the influence track loses the most impact in a solo game, because you will be moving up and down the influence track a lot as you are playing with multiple players, and this does impact certain things that happen during the game. The next role here is the medic. So in this game, all of the players share a pool of wounds. And as you take wounds, the medic will take the wound and they will place it on your character card. And then as you get down, things get more deadly. And if the party ever takes all 7 wounds, then the game is over. The party has taken way too many wounds and they get knocked out, and that triggers an end game, and you read passage 70 in the app. And so the medic will pass out these wounds, and if the time comes to heal, they will take the wounds back and place them on the wound track. So the medic is in charge of handling wounds. And then next up we have the scout. And the scout is probably the most important role in the game and probably has the most to do. So the scout is managing risk, and the risk will start at 8 and it will tick down. And if it ever gets back to this spot here, then that is another way to lose the game. So the world has become too risky. It's too dangerous. You've taken too much time, and things are just really bad. And so that is another way to lose the game. At the beginning of the game, you will take these risk tokens and you will set those out on the risk dial. And as the risk goes up, you will take these tokens off and then you will add them to a bag. So this game has a little bit of a bag building mechanism in it. At the beginning of the game, you will populate the bag with all of your yellow tokens. So we have a number of yellow tokens here. We have our threat tokens. These will be added to the bag. We have a few companion tokens that get added to the bag. And so these will go in the bag. And as you draw things out, you will place your risk on the track here, depending on the icon on the chip there. And as these get filled up, then you will remove all of these. You will push the dial up 1. You will add another negative threat to the bag, and you will reset your bag. And every time you travel from one location to the next on the map, you have to draw a time token, and that's what these are. You have to take time. Anytime you take time during the game, you draw one of these out, and it's usually something bad. However, you can populate the bag with some good things, such as these supplies. Supplies are an abstract way to alleviate some of the bad things that happen. So as you gain supplies, as you find supplies, you will add your supplies to the bag, adding some good things. And whenever you draw a supply, that just means that the bad thing doesn't happen. As you gain companions, there are a number of different companions. I love this Lazy Bones, the chill DJ does nothing. I'm going to flash his one of his prompts on the screen right now. This guy cracked me up, and I ended up feeding him to a dragon because he just kind of clogs up your character's spot for companions. We have Harold the Face, Gopher the Go-Getter, Cruncher the Accountant, Pascal the Dwarf Scholar, Trent the Shield Bearer. So all kinds of really cool, wacky, straight out of Gamma World mutated companions. And when you get a companion, you will get the corresponding companion chip, and you will add those to the bag. And whenever you draw one of those out, you will tell the app that you've drawn a companion out, and then you will go to a prompt in the app and you will encounter that companion and something special will happen. So that is another way to add some randomness to the adventures. So the scout is keeping track of risk. They're keeping track of the threat dial. Another thing that the threat dial represents is the target number for all of your challenges. As the game starts, your target number is only an 8. So that's pretty easy to hit with a D6 or a D20 and a D4. But as it goes up, it goes from 10, 12, 14, 16, and 18, plus the number of players. I ended my adventure at 16. So getting successfully overcoming those challenges gets harder and harder the more time you take. There's danger ticking away. And I really, really do like that system. It adds a little bit of time pressure, so you can't just do everything you want to do, but it doesn't feel overbearing. It doesn't feel like you just don't have enough time to have fun. And the final role here is the lookout. So the lookout wasn't used that much. I would say this is probably a good role to give to somebody who maybe is new to board games because they don't have a lot to do, but it is still a role. This is how you keep track of your enemy stats when you have combat. And depending on the location that you are on, let's find one that has a lookout stat here. Okay, so if you went to Paz the Displayer, on the upper left-hand corner, this says that A is Paz's HP. And so this would be set to whatever the app would tell you what the HP is. And dial A is the HP. I had one where I was facing off against a dragon, and A was the dragon's armor, B was the dragon's hit points, and C was a countdown timer that was associated with a mage that was trying to cast a spell. And so it would be up to the lookout to keep track of all of these dials, but it only came up one time during my adventure. So all of those things combined together make Freelancers just an absolutely amazing game. I had so much fun. The app is very well written. It's very well designed. The prose is very well written. It's funny. It's creepy. It gets goofy, but it also gets really dark. I mean, there are some crazy things that happen. I'm telling you, I could not believe the way that my adventure on map A ended, especially with that foul mouth prompt there. It was quite something, let me tell you. I think there's a lot going for this game. I think it retails for $60, and I just can't believe how much cool stuff you get. I mean, you also get a whole deck of story cards. So these are items that you can get from story prompts and maybe leveling up, or maybe you find a really cool weapon or a really cool trinket or piece of armor. So these are a whole big deck of things that you can get from the various story prompts. So we have this huge deck of story prompt items, and we have this huge deck of treasure cards. I think this is my only negative, is the way treasure is handled. There just aren't very many opportunities to keep treasure because your characters can only hold one weapon, one piece of armor, and 2 trinkets. So that's only 4 items. I was getting items left and right, but I never really had a reason. I never really had a reason to swap them out. Once I had a good one, I just kept discarding them. And there are a lot of times during the game where I was prompted to discard a treasure to do something cool. But I didn't have a whole bunch of treasure because I kept having to discard them because my slots were full. And so I'm not sure. I don't think you can hold on to treasure. I don't think you have an inventory of unequipped items. But I think that I would, if I was playing solo again, I would just house rule it to where the scout, who has this guy, Grunko, son of Grung, is kind of a pack mule here. He is carrying all of your stuff. And so rather than just discarding the treasure that I am not using, I would just stack here. And then that would allow me to swap in and out treasure if I wanted to at certain points. Or it would also give me a stack of discarded treasure to utilize during those times during the game when I was able to discard a piece of treasure for something cool to happen. The loot, there's a lot of loot, but I just didn't find that I was able to interact with it as much as I wanted. One cool thing, though, is there are augments. And so you can get a sword, and then you might augment your sword with a corrupted trait there, but that will add fire and frost and lightning. And there are multiple times where you might have a combat challenge or some kind of stat challenge, and the prompt will say, hey, if your sword is a flaming sword, you don't need to roll the dice. Just click this button and something cool happens. So I liked the way that things were augmented. I just wish I was able to equip more items. And that might be another drawback of only playing with a single hero, because your hero is able to equip things, but your companions, your sidekicks, they can't equip trinkets. And so I just kept having to discard trinkets. And I wish I was able to interact with them a little bit more than I was. But I think that and the loose standees are really my only complaints. So this is a total nitpick. And this is just something that, hey, that's just the design of the game and something that I will have to deal with. But overall, I can't recommend Freelancers any more than I am. This game is awesome. I'm really looking forward to playing this with a group because I think it will shine with a kind of social interaction. There are prompts in the app where it will tell you to role play. It'll say, hey, you need to come up with a speech that will, that will boost your party's morale, or you need to come up with a threat that will scare this enemy away. And you have to do something in character, and then the other players around the table will vote if you've done a good job or not. And then depending on how they vote, you will trigger a certain response in the app. And so playing solo, you just don't get that kind of interaction. And I think they did a really good job of creating that interaction around the table. But I'm also really happy that they included a solo mode. And the solo mode works fine. I don't think that's where this game shines. But if you like apps and games, this is a no-brainer. This game is fantastic. If you don't like apps and games, just try it. Get together a group of people. Each of you put in $20. Get 3 people. Each of you put in $20 and just play the game and have a good time. Don't worry about it being around forever. Just enjoy this nice bottle of scotch that we have now. That's kind of my go-to metaphor for people who say, I don't like app-based games because at some point in the future, electricity won't be around and the app won't be available anymore, or my computer will die and the app will be gone. But I always say that's like buying a nice bottle of scotch and then not drinking it, not enjoying it now because one day it'll be gone. Enjoy this game now, because right now is really the only time we are guaranteed in this life. So, all right, guys. Well, I hope you enjoyed taking a look at Freelancers, and we will talk to you later. Bye-bye.